of the impact of miscarriage that it's not spoken about, and that can make the experience that much worse. It compounds what is already either physically, can be physically a very traumatic experience, but psychologically and emotionally so as well.
We go back to the 19th century, people were quite open about miscarriage and pregnancy loss. And I think that the attitudes were different as well. I think reproductive care has moved on, so every pregnancy is intended, if you like, and that doesn't mean not all pregnancies are precious, but pregnancy loss was so common. People would spend 30 years of their life effectively being pregnant and losing a pregnancy and losing a pregnancy. So occasionally people are actually quite happy, in fact, if they lost a pregnancy. So
I've had 8 miscarriages in total. But yeah, I've just got to keep going. And I could sit in a corner and feel sorry for myself. And a lot of people do find it really hard. And I did find it very hard, and I still do find it really hard. But I have to keep moving, because there has to be life during. You have to live your life while you're going through it. Each one has been slightly different. Right at the beginning, it was very much, oh, we're pregnant, let's tell close family. So you tell your mum, your dad, and the siblings. And then, of course, you've got to tell them that you've had a loss. But then I got to a point where there was several miscarriages that I did have, and I didn't tell anyone, but then I still had to go and tell them that I've had a loss, because I was reacting differently to how I would normally be. And I wasn't sure which one was worse, actually, telling them sooner that I was pregnant and then actually I've had a miscarriage, or telling them right at the end, I've had a miscarriage and this is what I'm going through. It's something as simple as periods to talk about, and then you're talking about miscarriage. It's from one extreme to the next, really, isn't it?
Can I just add? It's not just periods. It's breast milk and menopauses and birth prolapses and traumatic births. I see that part of our response to miscarriage is situated in a historic misogyny around women's reproductive experiences.
That's interesting. I've never thought of it in that terms at all.
What my view is that there's a real difference between privacy and secrecy. Privacy is something, as you say, where it's a choice. It's your decision, and it's something that is what's right for you, and you're owning that. I think the problem with secrecy is when it's involuntary. It's when you feel you have to keep it to yourself because of the fear of the consequences. Yes. And that's for many, many different things. So the thing I wrote about was saying that there's the don't say anything in case something happens. Now what that suggests is that as though in case something happens, which means, oh no, then you'll have to tell people about it and you mustn't tell people about it.
Women's position in society has changed. So, in my case, and in the case of many of my friends, I was very much defined by my professional status and my professional job role and success. And the instant you change that status and you put something, anything personal, marriage or a relationship or pregnancy, that changes that status very dramatically. And in each case, nobody knew I was pregnant, so having a miscarriage was a very public statement of a change of status. And I agree, but in one case, in the first case, the HR director said to me afterwards, very sorry, very sad to hear it, so will you be trying again? And I thought, we'll have your business. And it was interesting, in fact, when I left that company, the chief executive tried to persuade me to stay, and I said, one of the reasons I'm leaving is not because you were insensitive, but because he was fantastically insensitive and quite invasive about, and actually in a way that technically is illegal. He's got no right to ask for my intention of pregnant again, because it changed how he viewed my career in the business.
It's about culture as well. I'm a gynecologist, so we have 2 girls. So if you wanted to see what culture's like when they go, what does your dad do in school? Now that's an interesting one. And Cleo, who's one is very embarrassed by the whole thing, and the other one said, my dad's a professor of vaginas. which had a very mixed effect on this co-educational class.
I think stigma is a big part of it, in that, so I have 2 children, 7 and 9. And I had, been a professional woman, traveled, done all the things. I had my son, and then a year later I got pregnant with my daughter. And I experienced a lot of, people looking at me like, was it a mistake? you know, they're so close together for you. And I was like, wait a minute, actually, we wanted to get pregnant, we had a second. So then there comes the next stigma. I had 4 miscarriages after that. And I think what's challenging is that people ask you, you know, are you crazy? You've had 2 and you actually want another one.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of reading into things, and ultimately we're talking about how underlying there's this idea that is unspoken, which is that you're not successful as a woman if you haven't had children.
Absolutely.
Going back to the workplace thing, on the other scale, I work in an area where there are lots of women who work in very physical jobs, who are on temporary contracts, who don't speak English isn't their first language, who are very unsure, and they will come to me as the first person they see and say, should I be doing this heavy lifting? Should I be doing X, Y, and Z? And I say, well, you need to let your employer know that you are pregnant, and they're very scared of letting their employer know they're very pregnant because they know that means the end of their job for them. It's not even a question of, it's, yeah, I can't tell them right now.
You mentioned flashbacks, you know, you mentioned something triggers, you said the word trigger. And as a significant portion of people after these events have got significant post-traumatic stress, easily qualifying to have PTSD. So when we did our pilot, it was 36% at 3 months had moderate to severe PTSD. We've just about published another study which is on many hundreds of women, and that shows 9 months after the event, 20% of women after an early pregnancy loss have got moderate to severe post-traumatic stress symptoms.